Daf Lamed Hayamid base, 16 lines from the top. We learned previously about Rabbi Elazar ben Charsim, who was a Kohen Gadol. Now the Gemara is going to bring down a brisa that makes reference to him, and as the Haggadah Yavid says that a Maisa that took place before he became Kohen Gadol, it also will have a reference to and talk about Hillel, and also before he became Nasi. Ton Rabbanon. Ani v'Asher v'Rosha boim ledin. The Ani, Asher, and Rosha, so after they live their lives, they come to din, and they come to be judged. And they asked him, Ani Amrlam ibnei Malo yasak b'Torah. They asked Ani if he wasn't Isaac b'Torah. They asked him, why were you not Isaac in Torah? As Shonim says, he points out that Chilas Din Shalom is on Talmud Torah, and he was Mevatel Torah. So they asked him, why weren't you Isaac b'Torah? If they say, if he wants to give an excuse, he says he was too poor, he was too busy with his parnosa, and he didn't have the time or the peace of mind to learn Torah. Or you were poor, can you say that you were more poor than Hillel? And yet we know by Hillel, we have the following Maisa that demonstrates that even though he had extreme poverty, he was Isaac b'Torah. And they say about that every day he worked and he earned a tarpaik. It's an amount of money, not a large amount of money. It's a half a dinner, Rashi says. Half of it he gave to the guard of the Beis HaMedrash. They didn't let anybody in. They had to pay the guard. And the other half of it was used for the parnos of him and his family. One time he couldn't earn any money. He wasn't able to earn any money. And the Shomer did not allow him to come in. So and he climbed up on the roof, and he suspended himself on the edge of the skylight, so that he could hear what was being taught in the Beis Medrash. And that they can hear the words of Elokim Chaim from Shema Yavav Amru Oisa Yomer Shabbos. They said that day was Erev Shabbos. Utkuvas Tevis, and it was a Tevis, it was the winter. Now he was on top, he was on the rooftop, and the snow came down from Shemayim, and it covered him. And he was buried under the snow. When it was when it was day, beginning of the day, Shemai said, my brother, it says every day the house, the Beis Medrash, is lit up. It's almost a shachar. It's daybreak. Every time the Beis Medrash is light. But today it's dark. Why is it dark in the Beis Medrash today? Maybe it's a cloudy day. So they looked up and they saw the image of a person on the skylight. All of us, all of room, they saw that he was buried under an enormous mountain of snow, of a 3 amas high mound of snow. So they took him off, they removed him from the snow, they washed him, and they covered him, then they anointed him with oil, and they put him next to the fire to warm him up. Amru Roy is a Shabbos. Said for this type of person that he's Meiser Nefesh V'Torah, he's worthy of Chil Shabbos for B'Mechal Shabbos to save him. So the Meforshim Masakasha, well, Mechal Shabbos for Bikuch Nefashos for Lahatza any Nefesh. Why does he have to be someone who's on the Madrega of Hillel that you say he's worthy of being Mechal Shabbos for him? The Ein Yaakov says that because this is not such a davar pashut, because Hillel was masakin himself. He put himself in that much of sakana. So it's saying, but nevertheless, that even though he did something which perhaps he should not have done, that he put himself in a matzav of sakana, but such a person who was meiser nefesh Torah, such a high madrigas royal chalal of Shabbos, even if he perhaps did something and he put himself in a matzav that he shouldn't have put himself in. So that's a what we say to the ani, you're not poorer than Hillel, and you see how he was Isaac B'Tayr. Asher, if it's a wealthy person, why were you not Isaac in Torah? If he says, oh, well, I was so wealthy and I had to take care of all of my nechosim, all of my properties, all of my wealth, I had to manage them, I was preoccupied, busy with them, and for Numan, and I didn't have the peace of mind. I'm like Klum Asher, how you say Rabbi Elazar? Do I say, were you wealthier than Rabbi Elazar? Rabbi Elazar Mecharsum. So this is the connection to what we were discussing and previously, of that he was eventually became the Kohen Gadol. So they say, were you wealthier than Rabbi Elazar? They say about him, that his father left him Yerusha 1,000 cities, and people owned cities, 1,000 cities on the land, and corresponding to that, 1,000 ships at sea. So he had corresponding to those ships. So you see that how wealthy he was, that he had this enormous amount of wealth, all these cities and all these ships. Ben Yehoyada says, why does it connect? Why doesn't it just say simply he had 1,000 cities and 1,000 ships? He says connect and corresponding to it to teach you that this should be taken literally and not just as a marshal, but literally he had this 1,000 cities and 1,000 ships. And in spite of that, even though he had this great wealth, and every day, he would take a flask of flour, put it on his shoulder, he'd go from place to place to learn Torah. And he would go from place to place and to find the Talmidei Chachamim to teach him Torah. One time he came into a city, and his servants encountered him. They didn't know who he was. So as we see from here that he was not Isaac, he did not manage his wealth, his properties, his servants didn't even know who he was. So they encountered him also by Angaria, and they wanted to push him and press him into the service of their master, Rabbi Elazar ben Charsam, not knowing that he was in fact their master. Omer lehen, he said to them, he said, please just let me learn and stay and learn Torah. And Moshe asked, why don't you just tell him who he was, and then that would be the end of it? He said, because it would take time to convince them who he was and to prove them, and that they wouldn't believe him. So he said, took the path of least resistance, so to speak, and he says, just let me learn Torah. They said, he said, we're not going to let you learn Torah. So then Yaakov says that the continuation of the Masechet is that there, and he paid them a huge amount of money to let him go learn. So we see from here that he never saw his servants. He was Isaac day and night learning Torah. Russia, what's with the Russia? What do we say to him? Why weren't you Isaac B'Torah? If he said I was so good looking, I was so handsome, and I had the Yetzer Hara, and I had to have a Yetzer Hara, and I had to fight with my Yetzer Hara and deal with my taivas, etc. I'm a klum. No, I used to be Yosef, were more handsome than Yosef Atzadik. And Omer Lava Yosef Atzadik, they said, every day, Eishes Potiphar would try to entice him to have relations with him, to have znus. The clothing, the nice clothing that she wore in the morning, she wore different ones in the evening. She was constantly trying to entice him, to mifat him. What she wore in the evening, she would not wear the next morning. She was constantly changing her clothing and trying to entice him. She said to him that he listened to me, surrendered to me, and be mizana. Amar la, love. He said no. Amar la, hareini chayvashtcha v'veis hasurim. She said, if you don't, I'll throw you in prison. Amar la, he said to her, Hashem matir asurim. Hashem releases from prison. She said to him, hareini koifefes koy masechet. She said to him, I'll bend your stature. I'll bend you down. You're proud, and I'll bend you down. He said to her, Hashem straightens the bend. She said to him, I'll blind your eyes. He answered to her, Hashem gives sight to the blind. Nasnaloi ela kikre kesef. She gave him 1,000 silver bars. Lishmoela lishkav esla liyaisima. To listen to her, to lie with her, to be with her. V'loi rasa lishmoela. He did not want to listen to her. Lishkav esla, meaning he didn't want to lie with her in this world. And not to be with her in Olam Haba, not to have any connection with her, not to be connected with her, not in Olam Haba. So you see that even though he had this terrible temptation and that she was mafatim constantly, and he was so noah, but he did not listen. Nimsa Hillel Machayves Aniyim, Hillel is Machayev the poor, Belazar ben Charas Machayves Hashim the wealthy, Yosef Machayev Es HaRishayim, and Yosef Tzadik Machayev the Rishayim. So the Mishnah continue on with the Avodah of Yom Kippur. Bo'aloi Eitzel Paroi, the Kohen Gadol comes to his park. Discussing now the Avodah Hayem. So he had his special park. He came to his park. Upara Hayamin Bein HaUlam Ulam Mizbeach. It was standing between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach Chitzain, and there was a space of 22 ams between the Mizbeach Chitzain and the Ulam. The Ulam, the antechamber before coming into the Heichal. So there was a area over there. That's where the par was Aymed, Reshul Adarim upon Lamarav. So it was, its backside was to the north, its head was to the south, and it was bent, the head was bent to the west. So it was bent to the west, Rapanov Lamarav, and it was bent to the west, that meaning facing the opening, the entranceway to the Ulam and the Heichal. So it was Reshul Adarim upon Lamarav, and his head was bent, tilted toward the west, facing the Pesach of the Ulam. And the Kohen was standing in the east, so he's standing behind the Parah, and Ufanov facing west. And he was facing the west, facing towards the Pesach of the Ulam. And he would put his hands and lean on the bar, the mitzvah smicha. He was saimach on it, and and he would do a vidui. V'kach haya aimer, and this is what he would say in his confession, in his vidui. He would say, Allah Hashem, please Hashem. He said, Avi sipashati chatasi lefanecha. I sinned in a way before you, and as we'll see in the Gemara, the difference of shyness of Avi chatasi pashati. There's shogeg, there's mezid, there's a moirid, rebellious. Ani uvesi, me and my household. As we'll see in the Gemara, he says, he has to be mechaper for his household as well. On Hashem, please Hashem, kaper no la'avaynis v'lapshoyim v'lachatoyim, give a kapora, give an atonement, forgiveness for Shavisi shopashati v'shachatasi l'fanecha, that I have sinned before you. Ani uvesi, me and my household, kakosu b'seiros Moshe avdecha, like it said by Teres Moshe, ki v'yom hazeh yechaper, on this day, yechaper lechem, l'chaper, it says, l'chaper, so I mean, kol chatei sechem, lifnei Hashem titzaru. And the people that would hear him would say, when they heard what he was saying, and they heard the shame, they would say, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusa Le'olam Void. They would say, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusa. When he said, Honor Hashem, so they said, Baruch Shem. So what does it mean when it said they heard the Shem Hashem? Which Shem Hashem is it referring to? The Rosh says it means Yud Kei Vav Kei, that he pronounced the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, which we don't pronounce. He pronounced the Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that's the name that they heard. The Hai Gaon says that it's the 42 letter of Hashem. It's referring to the 42 letters of the Shem HaMeforish. That's what it's referring to. The Yerushalmi says that when it says those who were near the Kohen Gadol, when they heard the name, they would be Kaira Mishtachve, and the ones who were further away, they would say Baruch Shem Kivod Malchus Elolam Void. Taisus and Saita says that the first group would say Baruch Shem and be Kaira Mishtachve, and the second group, which were further away, would just say Baruch Shem Kivod Malchus Elolam Void.